Let's now study three important concepts regarding the concept class and the means of production. The first is called relations of production. Also called ROP. Relations of production is the relationship of men with respect to each other in the process of production. Men have to work with each other to produce for the material life, is it not? Now, this relations of production between men is called the ROP, relations of production. Marx tells that in the process of social production, men carry on certain activities. They enter into different relations that are indispensable and independent of their will. So this relationship is indispensable. Indispensable means you cannot do away with it. It is very important. At the same time, it is independent of their will. They don't decide. So this is called ROP. Another concept is FOP. FOP is forces of production. FOP includes technology, capital, labor, land. This is FOP. If you take an IT company, for example, the building, the land, the technology used in the IT company and the labor will come under FOP. The relationship between the CEO, managing director, lower level managers, supervisors, team leaders and the workers will come under ROP. Now there is a third concept called MOP. MOP is the mode of production. Now what is this mode of production? Mode of production is nothing but ROP plus FOP. Got it? MOP is ROP plus FOP. So mode of production is nothing but the stage of material life. In history, you will be able to identify a stage. The stage in the material life can be clearly identified. Within that stage of the material life called MOP, mode of production, you will find ROP as well as FOP. So FOP and ROP together constitute MOP. If you take feudalism as a stage in history that corresponds to a material life, so the feudalism stage can be considered as a mode of production. Capitalism can be considered as a mode of production. Slave society can be considered as a mode of production. Now, in history, you will see different modes of production. One mode of production will be followed by another mode of production. In this process, history moves. Therefore, history itself is led by material forces. One MOP replaces the other. But how the MOP changes? This is very important. History is characterized by social change. Social change is characterized by struggle, tension. So MOP is nothing but the stage of history which corresponds to material life. How it changes? Let's see. MOP changes through change in FOP. First, the FOP changes. What do you see in FOP? Technology, capital, labor, land. One very important aspect in FOP is technology. When technology changes, MOP automatically changes. But MOP does not change with FOP alone. It also needs a corresponding change in ROP. Got it? So both FOP and ROP should change in order to effect a change in MOP. As history progresses, material life also progresses. Man gets new needs. He produces in order to satisfy these needs. In this production, he develops newer technology. Now technology change is obtained, but we need a change in the ROP. But change in ROP is not that easy, because there is already antagonism seen here. Men are seen in a relationship in which they are working for necessity, but it is not determined by them. It is independent of their will. Got it? For example, Varna system can be compared to ROP. Caste system in India and the Varna system can be compared with ROP. Let's take the example of the feudal system. In feudal system, the lord and the serf are antagonistic classes. The lord controls the serf. The serf is under the control of the master. Now this is nothing but ROP. Okay? After feudal society came the capitalist society. Now what led to capitalism? It was change of technology. It is told that the hand mill led to the feudal lord, the steam mill led to the capitalist. So what technology is being used by the lord in the feudal system? Technologies like hand mill, lower technology. Okay? Lower technology. Capitalist uses higher technology like steam mill. Now what changed here? FOP changed here. Hand mill was replaced by the steam mill, which is nothing but higher technology. Why higher technology? To meet the new needs of man. Now FOP is changed. Now when FOP changes, ROP also has to change. But ROP does not change that easily. It changes only after conflict. It changes only after revolution. So feudalism later transformed into capitalism. But this transformation was accompanied by social conflict. The serfs resisted the lords. As a result, the lord was replaced by the capitalist. Similarly, the serf was replaced by the proletariat or the worker. Earlier, serf used to work in the farm of the feudal lord. Hand mill was a technology. Later, technology under FOP changed. We obtained the steam mill. Now came the industry. Earlier it was a farm, now it is an industry. In industry, the relationship is completely different. The two antagonistic classes here are the capitalist and the proletariat. But this change in ROP happened through conflict. Okay, the serfs resisted the lord. Later, the serf became the worker. The lord became the capitalist. Ultimately, the mode of production itself changed. What is the mode of production here? Mode of production here is capitalism. Got it? Earlier it was feudalism. Now it is capitalism. Now mode of production, feudalism, later became capitalism because of change in FOP and ROP. First FOP changes, then ROP changes. Now change in both FOP and ROP leads to overall change in the MOP. The initial society envisaged by Karl Marx was primitive communism. The next society envisaged by Karl Marx was the slave society, followed by feudal society, followed by capitalist society, followed by socialist, and ultimately by communist. These are the 6 important stages of society as envisaged by Karl Marx. If you look into the first society, which is primitive communism, there was no antagonism. Here, no antagonism present. But in other societies, the succeeding societies, there will be antagonism. Ultimately, the world will reach the society called communism. In communism also, there would be no antagonism. In a separate lecture, we will study how we reach the stage called communism. I will explain this in a separate lecture under the topic alienation and class conflict. Now, can you apply historical materialism here? In primitive communism, the needs are satisfied. Slowly, other needs are emerging for man. In the first society, which is called the primitive communism, there was no surplus. Karl Marx didn't see the society directly, but he envisaged such a society. Later, surplus emerged. With the surplus, emerged the concept of ownership. With the concept of ownership, emerged the concept of class. Emerged the concept of exploitation. So this is how it led to antagonism. As far as there was cooperation, without any antagonism, there is no problem. The moment once surplus is emerging, it leads to ownership. Class is emerging, because class itself is a group of people who are similarly placed with respect to ownership. Ultimately, this society is also starting to see exploitation. Now, all these are happening after the first society, which is primitive communism. So this is the MOP. First MOP is primitive communism. So this also had FOP and ROP. But here, there was no antagonism. Relationship of production, you will not see any antagonism between the classes. Next MOP is slave society. In the slave society, technology changes. The ROP is also new here. In slave society, you have the master and slave. Feudal society, once again, technology is new, needs are also new. Here ROP includes the lord and the serf. These are the antagonistic classes. Earlier, the master and slave are antagonistic classes. Here, the lord and serf for antagonistic classes. Capitalism, once again, new technology and new ROP. In capitalism, the two classes are capitalist and worker. Right? Can you associate accordingly? So, MOP changes. In different stages in history, you will find different MOP. You will find different antagonistic classes. You will find different forms of exploitation. But you will always continue to see struggle. You will continue to see tension. This tension will come to an end only with communism. In communism, there will not be any antagonism. There will not be any classes at all. In fact, even in primitive communism, there was no class. Okay. Similarly, in the end stage, communism also, there won't be any classes. In the last stage, communism, there will be everything for everybody's needs. Technology will be developed to such an extent so that we can exploit nature without destroying the nature. All the goods and services will be produced for the rightful needs of all people. In the last stage, the slogan is from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. Such a society is called communism. It is a technologically advanced society. It is an equal society. It is a humanistic society. It is not a exploitative society. So change in MOP happens due to class struggles. So Marxism says that the history of all hitherto societies is the history of class struggle. History of all hitherto society is the history of class struggle. So history itself is characterized by class struggle. It is characterized by antagonism. It is characterized by change in MOP. That is why Marx tells that history itself is led by material forces. If you want to study history, you have to study the material forces. You have to study the evolution of the material forces. You have to study the exploitation. You have to study the social conflict, the class conflict. Now we will study the conception of society as seen by Karl Marx. We have now studied historical materialism, concept of class, concept of MOP, FOP and ROP. According to Marx, the foundation of society is nothing but the MOP. We studied that MOP is nothing but FOP plus ROP. It is the foundation for the society according to Karl Marx. You can take any society, you will find that MOP will be the foundation. Why? Because history itself is led by material forces. History is material according to Marx. So naturally MOP is the base. He calls the base as infrastructure. So infrastructure is decided by MOP, materialism. On top of the infrastructure, you see the structure called superstructure. Superstructure is the society as we see, but the foundation lies here. In the superstructure, you will find the social, cultural, economic and legal aspects of life. Society, culture, economy, political. Societal, cultural, political and legal, everything is decided based on the economic infrastructure. In simple words, economy decides the nature of society. This is the conception of Karl Marx on society. Institutions like law, judiciary, religion, institutions like church, customs, cultural practices, everything is decided by the economic base as seen by Karl Marx through the mode of production. So it is the MOP which is creating the social consciousness. who are you, what I am is decided by the economic base. Okay, my thought process, my perception of reality, my life is decided by the economic base. Now you find the ruling class in the economic base, is it not? You find the ruling class here. In the capitalist society, the ruling classes, the capitalist, is also called the bourgeois. Capitalist class has the ownership of the means of capital. Worker class or the proletariat class does not have the ownership of capital. In the economic base, you will see the ruling class. You will find the capitalist here. Am I right? When you look at the superstructure through society, culture, politics and legal, you will find that the values, thought process and ideas of the ruling class getting reflected in the superstructure. Okay? So the values of ruling class are seen here. So social consciousness itself is decided by the values of the ruling class. He calls these values as bourgeois values. The bourgeois or the capitalist in the economic base not only owns the means of production, he also owns the means of mental production. This is very important. Bourgeois or capitalist is not just the owner of the forces of production, he is also the controller of the mental production. Your culture is decided by the MOP. Your customs are decided by the MOP. Your acceptance of certain values are decided by the MOP. If you take a look at the Varna system in India, you can find out the conception of Karl Marx. So Varna system is nothing but MOP. Am I correct? You see Varna system within MOP. You find different classes. Four classes. Antagonistic classes. There is exploitation. Now you find the superstructure. Religion will be present. Culture will be present. Law will be present. If you take law, for example, in the ancient period, stringent punishments were given for the lower classes and very light punishment was given to the higher classes like Kshatriyas and Brahmins. Now what do you understand? The economic base actually decides the social consciousness. On what basis was it decided that lesser punishment be given to the higher classes? It was the economic base. So the higher classes, the exploiting classes in the economic base, their values actually reflect in the superstructure. So ruling class ideas and values are reflecting here. As a result, the exploited classes also accept these values. The lower classes had to accept the stringent punishment. They accepted the control of the higher classes. If you take the medieval European society, here also you can find the conception of Karl Marx. During medieval Europe, you will see that feudalism was a MOP. Feudalism. The feudal rulers of Europe had connection with the religious institution church. Okay. So the economic base actually decided the values. Ruling class ideas reflected in the superstructure. For example, the church held some views. These views were held as absolute. The church held that the sun was revolving around the earth. It did not accept that the earth was revolving around the sun. It also held the view that the earth was flat. Now, if anyone does not accept this view, this person will be seen as a deviant. He may be even given punishment by the church. Now, the church is actually reflecting the view of the ruling class. The ruling classes in medieval Europe at that time did not want proliferation of knowledge. They wanted the society to be conservative. They did not like change. They wanted to continue with their exploitation. Marx actually defined religion. He saw religion differently. He saw religion as the opium of the masses. It saw religion as giving solace to the worker who is exploited by the capitalist. He tells that religion is a sigh of the oppressed creature, heart of a heartless world, and the soul of soulless condition. Worker is exploited by the capitalist. Now, where does he seek solace? He is seeking solace in religion. He cannot do anything. He has to take in the exploitation. Worker undergoes exploitation. He has to continue with this situation for long because the values of the capitalist are reflecting in the superstructure. These values reflect in the religion. So the religion itself is reflecting the values of the ruling class. Ruling class here is the capitalist or the bourgeois. According to Christianity, it is easy for a camel to enter a needle hole, but it is difficult for a rich man to enter heaven. Now, what is being upheld here indirectly? It is told that it is okay to accept exploitation, remain poor and die as a poor man. You need not try to become rich. You need not try to fight your exploitation. Accept exploitation passively. This is what religions themselves are telling. Now, who instilled these views in the religion? It was a view of the ruling class or the capitalist. The capitalist wants to exploit the masses forever. Now, this is a ruling class idea, is it not? Now, this ruling class idea is reflecting in the religion. Now, the worker himself is influenced by the religion. Now, he has no other choice to accept the religion because he sees the religion itself as a solace. The religion is seen as the opium for the masses. He accepts the exploitation passively. He looks at the concept of God, which gives him solace. Marx will tell that God itself was a concept created by man to get some meanings for his exploitation so that he is able to escape the concept called alienation. We will study alienation in another lecture later. Now, what is the solution for this exploitation? Marx tells that struggle and class conflict is a solution for the worker to come out of exploitation. We already discussed the concept of class. What is class? Class is a group of people who are located similarly with respect to the means of production. So, members of a class will also have identical interest. What do they have? Identical interest. Members of a class. How do you look at a class? They are similarly located with respect to MOP. Now, if you look at classes, they may have identical interest, but they may not realize that they are having identical interest. As long as they maintain this position, they are seen as class in itself by Karl Marx. Class in itself is a class which is having identical interest, but it is not having solidarity. It is not able to analyze that their interests are similar and they are under the exploitation by the bourgeois or another exploiting class. Now, the class conflict will come only when the class in itself becomes class for itself. Class for itself is a stage where the members of a class analyze and identify they are having identical interest and they are able to realize that they are under exploitation. This is called class for itself. Only when class for itself is reached, class conflict will happen, which will lead to change in the means of production. Marx tells that peasants, they are generally class in itself. Who are the peasants? The landless agricultural laborers are called peasants. Farmer is a person owning land. Now, peasants are just a class in itself. They are not realizing that they are being exploited because peasants live in different regions, they speak different languages, they follow different customs. They don't see them as having the same interest. Only industrial workers, the proletariat, they can become class for itself. That is why Marx tells that in advanced capitalism, the workers will ultimately realize that they are having identical interest and they will also realize that they are under exploitation. Then they will go for class struggle. Ultimately, it will lead to socialism, further leading to communism.